Welcome to the Ambitious Coach Lab, powered by 90. I'm your host, Dr. Cam Lawson. Each week, we explore the real tactics, tough conversations, and breakthrough moments that drive coaching success. Let's jump into today's episode. Well, hello, friends. I am so excited to welcome James and Rebecca Lockwood to the show. They are the founders of the Thriving Couple. And I came across with them. One of my dear friends, Michelle Rose at 90, had introduced us and said, "You've got to get James and Rebecca on." And they have created this operating system for families, which is so unique. You guys coach families on the almost rigid part of what I would think is an operating system, but you actually have made this way for families to do it. So I am so excited to welcome you guys to the show.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having us.
Hey, great to meet you. My name's James.
Yes, love it. So we are going to jump in here. And so tell us a little bit of your entrepreneurial journey because James, you have a unique background, and Rebecca, you are also in kind of the business operating system coach. So I would love to hear you guys talk a little bit about how you came to what you guys are doing in this moment.
Yeah. I mean, if we go way back, I was running a hotel company. We designed and operated independent hotels, and I was lucky enough to have the amazing Jill Young as my
Oh,
EOS implementer. And so I learned from the best and actually got the opportunity to become an EOS implementer for several years before leaving and kind of doing my own thing. And, it was interesting. I would say I I got into this amazing entrepreneurial world where you get surrounded by the Jill Youngs, right? The implementers, the people that are learning and growing. I was in strategic coach, and it was very different than the world that James was
Yeah, I was gonna say
was managing at home, right?
I was my official title is the CEO of Dad Operations.
nice.
So I'm the stay-at-home parent. I was managing our 2 kids at the time, the house, the evening dinners, sports events, all the other logistical stuff that's the important stuff that needs to happen.
And I remember, just feeling like we were not relating with each other anymore.
Mm,
I was growing at a huge rate. I had never really done a ton of personal development. I'd done some leadership development, but I had never really done a ton of work with coaches. And now I'm surrounded by amazing coaches. And you come home with tons of new ideas, and it's like, oh, we can't do that. You know, are you crazy? Like, we've got a lot of things going on, right? And it just started to create this huge gap and this huge divide. And I remember I did my Colby for strategic coach, and I had this aha moment. I'm a 9 quick start. And I sent the assessment to James and I said, "You've got to do this," right? So he did it without any explanation. I got his results and sent him an email. I know all the reasons why we're having problems in our marriage,
mm.
right? He's a 2 quick start. I'm a 9 quick start. He's an 8 fact finder. I have very little I have a 4 fact finder. And in my mind, all of a sudden I'd figured out a lot of the challenges
Mm.
that we were having.
Well, I think, you had this epiphany of you doing all these great things with great companies, and why couldn't you get our marriage to work as
Mhm.
well as that? And I think, I remember the moment you came home and said, I let's do an annual meeting. And I'm thinking there that this sounds absolutely hideous. Like, we got to the point in our marriage where I have to have a business meeting
Right,
to stay
right.
married, and it was repulsive, honestly. Like, I mean, like, my focus was the kids, my focus was dinner, your parents wanted to hang out this weekend, and what's the plans? Like, having a business meeting to plan the next year, and honestly, looking back on it now, it was the most impactful thing we ever did, like, starting to work
Oh.
on our relationship versus in it. Like, Rebecca would talk about the hedgehog theory, dysfunctions of a team. I had no idea what all this was. Like, this is all foreign to me, and it's been a phenomenal journey that we've
I
been on.
Mm.
I think life is so fast now, right? You can
Mm.
look at your phone and there's notifications. Well, I've turned all mine off, but right, there's literally notifications everywhere.
Yeah.
There's constantly different um inputs, right?
Mm.
Between kids sports and
Yeah.
school and trying to do vacations and work and all of the things. And I think in order to really live the life that you wanna live, you have to be able to be intentional and focus on the things that are important, right? And if there's anything better at doing that, it's an operating system to get clear on where you're going, to make sure that you're having disciplined execution, and to make sure that you're actually communicating as a team, not dancing around the things that are really gonna be the important conversations.
I mean, that sounds great for you guys because you guys all understand, like, an operating system, but when I got introduced to that, that's repulsive. Like, if you bring that home to your spouse, they're gonna be like, "Who wants to have a board meeting again for their marriage?" But I think what it gave me the ability to do was to start dreaming again because,
Mm,
I get so wrapped up into the day-to-day, where we were going as a family and looking after the kids and putting everyone else in front of me and what I needed to do. I think I lost the ability to dream, and I lost the ability to, like, understand where we were going as a couple.
Yeah. And I think it's do I get to do this or do I have to do this, right? It's more of that
yeah.
mindset shift. And I
Mm.
think by taking that step up and really thinking about what's working with us, what's not working, what are we accomplishing that we're proud of, and what maybe are we not doing and not showing up in the right way that we're maybe not as proud of. It gives you this ability to shift your mindset.
Well, I would imagine there's a lot of you're almost I think you kinda mentioned it, James, when you said you'd almost I don't wanna put words in your mouth, but, like, lost yourself a little bit, where it's like you each get into your own roles where you're just going, and then I've heard of the analogy where you kinda start out, together, and then eventually you start to kinda, like, drift ways, and then you're owning your own roles and you're successful,
Yeah.
and by, let's call it worldly standards, you have a measure of success that people would look at, "Oh, wow, they're, cruising, they're doing what they need to, they're checking all the things that would measure success," but then internally and behind closed doors, it was kinda breaking down, and so I think I would love to dig a little bit into what made you all kinda think of, "Hey, okay, we started to, like, intentionally work together on things," and then building actually almost the vision of, "Hey, we can actually help others with that." Can you talk a little bit about how you guys got to that in your practice where, "Hey, we're actually gonna go and dive into this and build a business on doing this?"
I mean, I think it was out of desperation, to be
Mm,
honest. I think that we both, funny enough, have children, two beautiful children, and I.
Together, by the way. Just
And I really think that it is our children that made us really look
mm,
and reflect on ourselves and say, we do not want to have only half of our children, right? We do not want to um, live apart. We want to make this work.
yeah,
And I think it was truly out of desperation that we are like, "We have
mm,
got to figure this out." I used to come home and I can be in a session room and I can read the room. I am so good at reading the room. I can hear what's said and not said, and then I would come home and be like, "I have no idea how to communicate with this other human." And so I think it was a huge journey of me growing. I've read this article from Harvard Business Review that says, I think it's 95% of people think that they are self aware, and only 10% of people are actually self
wow,
aware, right? That means that 1 in 10 people are actually self aware, right? And I think it was a huge awareness journey for me
mm,
to really see, how am I showing up? I in the business, I could make all the decisions and do all the things, right? And then you have to come home and there's another person that you have to work with, right? And, so I think for me, it was really I did not wanna get divorced. I wanted to make it work, and I really felt like there were tools that were working in other areas of my life that I could start to bring and talk about with James.
to me as well, it's like I think we started these 2 journeys at the same time. I started a journey of self-development. Like, I started to open the door to being life coached. I actually had invested in myself for the first time, and as I was doing that, we were going through the decision of, like, do we turn in or do we just call it a day? Like, I think things had got that far apart. We've been running that fast, that
Wow.
quickly in
You
different directions.
you mentioned, starting to in our book, The Cohesive Couple, we actually talk about being in 2 separate canoes going down the same river, right? And it's
Mm,
like you can get in your own world, you can have your own things that
yeah.
you're building, right? And until you decide to actually pull the canoes together and jump in the other
Mm.
one, right?
We were doing life together, but we were not living the same life, if that makes sense.
Almost roommates is how I've
Yeah.
sometimes heard it, like, you're just
100%,
roommates at that point, yeah.
100%, yeah.
And so I think you started bringing back these things that worked in business. You're like, well, if I can do it in a business, if I can get the team around a vision and a dream and a goal, like why can't we do that in our personal life? And I was very resistant, like I said, like at the beginning. It's like this sounds terrible, horrible, but when you rally and start dreaming about where you want to go together, and I think we do such a great job of bringing in other softer tools that
Yeah.
aren't necessarily in a business operating system, like a bucket
Mm.
list. Like, everyone could dream around a bucket list, and then you can start
Yeah.
building out from there into, like, where do you wanna be in 10 years? It's really interesting when you sit down and we coach couples, and they come in like, "We know exactly where we're going," and you ask them, like, "Well, where do you wanna be in 10 years?" It's like they both have the same continent, but they're
Mm.
not got the same GPS location.
Yeah.
They're not heading to that exact same point,
Hmm.
and it's like until you take the time to actually write it down and flush it out, you're not on the same page.
Interesting, that's fascinating, yeah, because there are I mean, I could see the resistance. I'm thinking about, my wife, and if I, like, showed up with, like, "Hey, we're gonna run a level 10 meeting," every week, she'd be like, "What in the world?" And she'd be like, "No, we're not doing that. We're not getting that structured." But I think that's there's so much value to I mean, yeah, you don't wanna treat it like strategic planning, but there is a level of I love that approach to, like, the softer tools because it is, I mean, it is a little bit more of a you're dealing with there's a romantic element and an
Mhm.
intimacy level that's a unique dynamic, and so, talk a little bit about the pivot, right? Because I mean, you went down I mean, even the life coaching aspect and then the EOS Pinnacle side of things, that's probably maybe it's not as big of a pivot as I'm making it, and it's but, I mean, from a mental shift because 'cause you're going from, potentially boardrooms or coaching, executive leaders to families where a spousal dynamic is put in. Can you talk a little bit about what that shift was like for you all as you interact with the individuals?
It really started organically, so it wasn't an intentional shift, to be
Hmm,
honest, right? We were doing this, we were, having a lot of success with it, and we had a lot of our friends go, "Well, what are you doing? It's amazing. You're talking about all these bucket list items." James actually got the opportunity to go to Everest Base Camp. It was in one of our quarterly retreats, and I said, "Honey, you're not getting any younger. This thing's been on your list. Like at some point, are
go.
you going to do this?" And so we cashed in all my air miles, and he and my son actually got to go to Everest Base Camp, which was awesome. But it really started that way, with people just asking us what we were doing, and we started running a few retreats, and, we had some amazing, couples come, and we looked at each other and we were like, "I think there could be something here, like, this is really fun," and one of the things it's really fulfilling work. I mean, I love the work that I do with companies, but I love the work that I do with couples,
Yeah.
just as much, right? It's so fun to help people dream again and open up curiosity. And you mentioned, connection and intimacy, and I really think that starts with curiosity.
Hmm,
And so, really understanding more about each other. How can we use tools to unlock parts? As you have been together longer, you start assuming that you know the other person,
mhm,
right? Instead of continuously people change, right?
yeah.
And why are you thinking that way now? And what
Mm,
has happened in your life that's made you think a little bit differently? And I'd love to learn more about that. You don't have as many of those conversations anymore unless you
mm,
create the space for them.
And I think for me, I think we did so much work. Like we went to therapy, counseling, and they're all backwards looking. And it feels like you're in this little hamster wheel going around and around talking about the
mm,
same thing again and again and again and not getting any traction. And it wasn't until we started like, where are we going in the future? Until we started looking
mm,
forwards and rallying around a point that you start actually winning together, and then that momentum just starts creating this flywheel that just creates more energy, more wins, and they're like, "We're not aiming high enough. We're not doing enough. We're not pushing ourselves far enough." I mean, I remember I mean, Rebecca jokes about it that the time she said, we should become full-time RVers. We should just, like, go out and travel." And
This was right after COVID.
I'm like, I'm a high fact finder. I'm like, "No." Like, hard no. And then, I went away, I did a lot of research on it, and
I had
As
completely
high fact finds do.
I had completely moved. This was, like, months later, by the way, Cam, not, like, a
Yeah,
couple of days.
you'd, like, long gone.
It was, like, out of my mind,
Yeah.
completely gone.
I'm like, I think we should do that."
And he comes back and he's like, "So I think we should do this. Let's
Mm.
try it."
And, I mean, here we are, like, 4 years in, we're calling you right now from, like, Colorado in the mountains, kids are on the ski team, you know, we live very much a life of intention that we've built, and that hasn't happened by accident. We spent the summer just trolling the West Coast and experiencing all the beauty out there, but again, it doesn't happen by accident, it
Mm,
happens through saying yes to what's important and having a filter to be able to apply to the things that distract you
yeah.
and take you away from where you actually wanna go, and I think that's the beauty of having a long-term vision and plan as a couple, is you get to say yes to the things that are important and no to the things that are the shiny objects,
Hmm.
that Becca, as a 9
Guilty.
quick start, would go straight in that direction. But now we
Yep.
have something it's not me versus her, it's us
Yeah.
versus the destination, like, we both agreed that this is where we're going, like, do we wanna still go there, or we wanna go over here to the shiny object that you said's important right now, you know?
That's so good because even in really any business operating system, that's often where you start, right?
Mm,
Is, "Hey, what is the vision of what we're trying to build here?" And that's so neglected, and I think so many families don't think about it that way, where it's just kinda you get into the routine where it's just, "Alright, got like, my son's got baseball practice tonight, 5:30, he's gotta be there, we gotta get dinner before that, we got" it's just da 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 da. And then pretty soon, before you know it, weeks, months, years go by, and you've been in this routine thing, and there's not a clear direction of where you're going. Yet
yeah,
in
No,
business, I could tell you I work fractionally, and I could tell you every bit of the strategic plan and the vision of where we're going, where we wanna be in 10 years.
yeah.
And yet, I think most often, most couples and families wouldn't be able to replicate that, yet it's almost more important.
and I blame social media, and I blame Hollywood, because I think they all put out this image that relationships should just naturally happen. Like,
Yeah,
"Hey, look at me, my life is perfect, my relationship
right.
is perfect, everything's great," and it just happens effortlessly.
Mm,
It's not. It requires intention, it requires time, and it requires a plan. Like, if you don't have a roadmap and a plan on where you're both going, you're not going in the same direction.
hmm,
Like, you're tugging apart. Like, you might not realize it, and then you wake up one day and you've drifted apart.
hmm,
And are you settling for the life that you've got and hoping that it's gonna get better? Or are you actually planning and, like, we do that in business all the time. Like, a business without a vision, a plan, and weekly cadence is gonna fail.
yeah.
So why would you treat your relationship any different? And it wasn't until I got past that roadblock that things started to shift for us as a couple. Like, the idea of having that meeting sounds repulsive. Again, I'm gonna tell you, but it's the most impactful thing. I know that I sit in our weekly meeting, and I know I have to focus, we have to strategize, we have to come together, we have to align around the calendar, and
What I
then
also think that, that piece in particular has done is that you joked about, like, doing a level 10 meeting with your wife, and what I love about the idea that we do a weekly sync is it's given us a place to put the stuff that you
Mm,
need to talk about, so now when you are making dinner with each other, you can talk about other stuff, right?
mm,
It's not all that logistical stuff. You've got a place for that. We don't have to messy all that up, and we can actually now have more time to connect when we're in moments that make sense, if that it
oh,
allows more time for that.
100%. I mean, the structure so I have a PhD in communication, and I studied this is super nerdy, but there's this theory called structuration, by Anthony Giddens. that's irrelevant, but, credit where credit is due, right?
Love it.
And so but he has this idea where you have structures, right, that influence agents, and then the agents then reinforce that structure, so you have this cycle, and in my specific research, I studied how social media is a perfect example of that, of, like, comment sections, people go in, but I think with business operating systems and operating systems in general, that's what they do. They provide this level of structure that then allows you to go in and let things just it has this time and place. You have a consistent agenda. You have a place
Mhm.
where you can go put issues. And I know in the context of business, Tuesday mornings, we have a level, a meeting where we're going to get together and we're going to go in and I can go in and put urgent, but not necessarily hair on fire things that need to be dealt with. And I know that's the dedicated time where we can talk about that. And that gives me peace of mind knowing that that place is in there. And so it sounds like you guys are replicating that for families, which then James, I don't want to assume, but I would imagine you actually probably look forward to those meetings now. Am I right?
My
No,
to-do list.
it's I like nothing more than our annual meeting. Like, that to me is the pinnacle of, like, we spend 2 days working on our relationship and really, like, what does the next year look like? Like, and I get
Mm,
really excited about it. Like, Rebecca brings in the flip chart. She we gotta we get an Airbnb for the weekend, and then we walk away from that meeting knowing what the next year is gonna look like.
mm,
And, you know
We've made really big decisions in there too. We had come back off the road, lived in the house for a year, and we'd gotten some feedback from our kids that they were like, we'd rather get back on the road. So we literally decided in that annual meeting that we were
wow.
gonna go back on the road again. So we've made some really, really big decisions,
Mm,
and then it's given us that framework to follow it through.
I mean, if you asked us, "Do you argue any less?" Probably not. Like, but now I have a container. Like, I
you're
sit in
right.
that meeting and I know it's not Rebecca arguing with me anymore. We're arguing about the problem. Like, to
Yes.
me, like, you take the emotion out of it,
Yes.
and there's so much benefit to that. It's not me fighting against Rebecca
Mm,
anymore. It's my way or her way. Who's gonna win? It's not that anymore. It's like, how do we fight the problem to get to the
mm,
destination again?
Yeah.
And I think having all these soft tools that we pull into it, from the bucket list to rituals, which is just phenomenal. We go through and you mark out all the rituals that for the year are important. Like, a big one for me is cutting down a Christmas tree. Has to be on the calendar, has to be on the schedule,
mm,
you know? But you bring in all these elements that I can relate to, and then there's the structure there of, like, rocks and
yeah.
what's the next 90 days look like,
Mm.
so I think it's a great blend of a lot of different things that come together.
I have a fun rock this quarter, so we do a one-on-one trip every year with our kids.
Oh,
Yeah, so this year I get to go with my daughter, and James gets to go with our son Lucas, and so we get to plan and execute this quarter is my rock.
oh,
So
that's so
the
fun.
idea of like it's so important. Let's make sure that
Mm,
it actually happens and gets on the calendar. But yes, I'm super excited about that. I got the idea from there's a guy named Jim Shiles. I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name. I apologize, Jim. But he wrote a book called The Family Board Meeting,
hmm.
and, the idea of, like, spending time one-on-one with your kids, no phones, no technology, just spend that time to connect, so it's a
That's
really
so
cool
important in
ritual.
today's world too, that I think the presence, because there we can be pulled in so many different directions, and, this little thing right here can be a very big distracting factor, and I'm not sitting here being like I'm the one that has it all figured out because I don't. But it can be so distracting. So I think that intention I love that. I might steal
Mm.
that just as my own, just have that like 90 day. I saw something and I was challenged by this, but to have, however many times it makes sense for you to do this, but have what's called a yes day for your kids. I just have
Mhm.
one.
Yeah.
We have one little boy. He turns 5 on Monday of the day of
Oh,
this recording. So, but letting him have just a yes day where it's like, "Whatever you wanna do, dude." So we taught him, like, for his birthday, it was like, "Alright, what do you wanna do, dude?" And he planned this whole thing. He wants to
oh,
go bowling and go to the arcade and then go get ice cream, and I was like, "Yes, dude, yes." I mean, number 1, it's
awesome.
your birthday, but also having those in the non-birthday days, I think and we're just gonna put phones away, and spend that time. I think that's so important. So
Yeah.
that's so cool to see, but let's transition a little bit into so one thing I want to make sure I mention this before we move on. You guys are so crystal clear on the vision of why you're doing it. And I think it comes from a place of it sounds like pain, that you walked through that together and worked through that and now want to help others with that. And I think that is it's not it's very much motivated out of, "Hey, we walked through this and we see the other side of what you can get to, and we've built this entire thing around that." Which I think a lot of coaches I wanna make sure coaches hear and understand this because you can't just get into coaching because you think it's just a side thing at the end of your career or you think it's a great way to make money. You have to have a clear why, and I think you 2 are a perfect example of that, of moving in every decision of how you've built your practice is geared around that vision of what you're doing. So, props to you guys for coming to that conclusion. And I know that was a journey, I'm sure.
Yeah, but I
um,
just think about if we had had something like this when we
yeah.
started our marriage, it would have been a completely different journey. We got the opportunity to just speak with EO Detroit, which is an amazing chapter. So shout out to EO Detroit. And it was so fun because there were all these couples in the room. We had some that were empty nesters, and we had some that had just been married like 6 months. And the goals and the things that they were planning were just so different. But it's universal. It's universal. It's two people doing life together, and ambitious, wanting to do amazing things, and, just need a playbook to figure out how to do it, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, if I could go back and look at my previous self, I think if I'd had this at the beginning of our marriage and we'd had a plan on where we were going, we would have achieved so much more. And now I feel like we're playing catch up. Like it's funny as being the spouse that's not in the business world. Like when you start getting those small little wins, even if it's just like hitting date nights every week. Like if it doesn't get scheduled, it doesn't happen. Like I think it's the cliches like what gets measured gets done.
Yeah.
Look at it, see, I'm teaching.
There you go.
Just to hit date nights and
Mm,
have the parameters of you can't talk about, work and you can't talk about your
Yeah.
children. I mean, that is really hard, like, to start with, but then you start getting these little wins and it's like, we need to do more. Like, we're not aiming high enough
like little
right now.
dopamine hits.
Heck
Yeah,
yeah,
no,
that's right.
but then that brings you closer together as a couple. Like, the connection and the intimacy that comes along with that is, like, 10x. There you go.
Once you have, vision clear, then the way we talk about it is there's competencies of being a great coach, right? And so you have vision, gotta be clear on why you're doing what you're doing, and then moving into once you have that, then you gotta build an offering that people are attracted to, and you gotta go out and be able to sell it and go out there and get people to you know, move forward with that. And so, you've talked a lot about, you have the business operating system tools, right? And then you have some soft tools. Can you talk a little bit about, all right, what comes, sounds like a quarterly, an annual meeting and, weekly syncs. Like, what tools come from the business operating system world? And then what are some of the other tools that you guys bring in? If you can kind of show some of the soft side versus the hard or rigid, whatever you want to call it, side.
Yeah, I mean, maybe the easiest way, as a coach, right, we have to have a model. Gino was brilliant, at just simplifying.
Mm,
And so I think the EOS framework was very influential. But in our model, we really started with mindset as the center of it all.
mm,
And I I believe that you get the relationship that you're ready for. So if you want a better relationship, you have to start with yourself first.
mm.
And so we've got some really great mindset tools around, thinking growth mindset, abundance mindset, right? Understanding where you are and where you naturally fall, because you have the power to change that and reframe your world. So we have some tools around that.
I think my
Um,
favorite tool is the life wheel. We always start off with that. Every quarter, every annual, you start off with like, where am I at? And you do a self-assessment. And from that, we take a personal rock. Like, because we always put ourselves last. Like we always like take care of everybody else first, and
Right.
then we take care of ourselves. We flip that around and say, what's gonna fill your cup this season?
Mm.
Like, where do you need to work on? And that's just such a we had such great response from that, and it's something everybody can approach. It's like it's just a brief snapshot of where your life's at, and you see it from season to season, and it changes. It's like, and where do you wanna focus on? Like, what's the most important thing for you for this season? Um, sorry, you
No, that's okay. No, it's okay, right? So that I really when I was writing the book, I was really passionate about being that being the very first piece,
Mm,
to understand how are you viewing your world, how are you viewing your relationship, your partner, yourself, right? And making sure that you're, improving those things, or reframing those things. And then we have some tools around connection or teamwork. And so, things like love languages, right? Those actually can change. So there are a lot of couples that have done that when they first got together. And then they do it again and they're like, man, it's kind of changed a little bit.
mm,
And just understanding how to speak to each other in the same language. So the idea of common language, right? And a shared language is so powerful. So for us, the Colby was really, really powerful, but I encourage couples to do a lot of the different assessments. My coach for strategic coach was Chad Johnson, and he has 11 children, so he talks about working genius and putting everybody in their, in their.
that's a lot of combos.
That's right, right. But just the idea of being curious, understanding each other. We
Mm,
love Brene Brown's work, so just bringing in some of those softer things, and then getting
right.
into vision and
mm,
action.
I mean, I'd love to add in that in team health section, I mean, you do that all the time in businesses. How much money in businesses do you pour into, like, becoming a better team? And
right.
in your home relationship, you just leave it up to hope. Like, you just hope it's gonna be okay, and that's not a strategy. That's another coined phrase from a hope is not a
Yeah,
strategy.
there we
He's
go.
getting it.
There
Yeah.
we go. I'm working on it. Yeah, and then vision and action. So
Mm,
obviously a lot of the vision and action are adopted from the framework, from a business operating system, right? So the idea of an aligned vision of where you're going. We've added rituals and bucket list and your big dream to
But
that.
we've also added things in like an annual calendar review. So it's like to sit there 12 months out and really,
mm,
but like Rebecca's schedule is crazy and it changes. And to really block out ahead of time, what are the things that really need to happen this year and hold space for them ahead of
mm,
time is like, that is such a simple tool. And it sounds like everyone's probably sat there going, yeah, yeah, we should do that. But
mm,
do you actually do that? And do
right.
you actually carve out the time and the space? Because we're so good about working in the relationship and doing the day to day that we forget to allocate the time to work on the relationship and actually sculpt out the things that we say are important, like the one-on-one trips, like the yes day for your son. Like if that didn't happen this
Yeah.
year,
He'd be sad,
He
right?
that'd be
would.
a huge
Oh,
He
you
would
miss.
gotta
totally
do
let me
it.
know. He thinks every day should be yes day. That
Yeah, I think our
that sets the
children
standards
like
here.
the concept. Yeah. You're
Well, yeah, that's fascinating, and I love that approach of going. I'm sure there is. You have to deal with certain things, whether that's teamwork or understanding, before you can get to thinking about the vision. Right? There's probably. Do you find that? I mean, I'm sure there's a mixture of couples that come in that are in, you know, pretty rough situations versus maybe they haven't quite gotten very far apart, in the canoes yet. Do you find that there is a specific path that makes sense? It sounds like there is a tool that you guys start with, but is there,
I mean, I
I
think it's
mean,
the
a
same.
difference in kind of approach, if you will?
I mean, a lot of the couples that we work with are, want to go from good to great. And we're not therapists. And so
Right.
we're not really skilled at being able to deal with, the couples that are in a lot of distress. Despite us being in distress, like we don't have the tools. We
Right.
used outside resources for that. And so, we're really I would say that most of the couples that we work with, they are committed to each other, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of outside things taking their attention, and they just need to get back to remembering who they were, what they wanted to accomplish, and they
Mhm.
need help to get there, or they just need a guide to get there.
And I think I touched on this earlier on. I think therapy deals so much in rehashing the past. And I felt like we never made any progress with that. This is just a forward-looking program. So you look back in the past to learn what happened, but we don't sit in the past. We're sitting on a this is a very forward-looking program. It's like, let's set a point in time. Let's rally around that. Let's get some wins together. Let's get some wind behind ourselves. And then the dynamic starts to change. Like, I think we have so many couples that have been through the program, and you get these high visionaries that are like driving in their business, and then they're like driving at home as well. And it's like their
Mhm.
partner's like, well, hey, I'd like to drive the bus once in a while. Like, I'd like to say where we're going.
We actually, so we do private coaching as well as workshops, and we met with someone, a lovely man and his wife, and they were putting together their vision together, and they did that, and he came back 2 weeks later, and he's like, I never thought about the fact that I needed to talk to Julianne about this. Like, I just, it was like I was just going with it. Like, I just assumed she was on the already on the bus, and so that was kind of a fun moment. So we love those moments where you just kinda learn a huge aha or insight about
Mm.
your spouse that you didn't know before.
That probably happens a lot because I mean, you do have a lot of I mean, I'm an 8 quick start and I'm a 4 fact find. So, I mean, I
I
resonate
gotcha, I
that like
gotcha.
and so, it can be a lot of all gas, no brakes, right?
Yeah.
And that can be an advantage in certain situations, and it can also be a massive liability in other situations. And I think you do have to learn almost how to tap into the strengths of both leveraging that in a relationship, but also learning how to like communicate that and work with somebody else that's a little different because it is, I mean, you might play that role as visionary and CEO or founder or whatever you are in your business, but you are in a team aspect and a partnership in a
Yeah,
marriage or a relationship. And so I'm sure that is a hard dynamic for some individuals to have to work through. Is that,
yeah.
I mean, is that
Oh, yeah.
accurate? Yeah.
Absolutely, right? Because we're moving so quickly. In my case, James is trying to stabilize, right? And so the idea of us now, I have to approach things a little bit differently, right? If it's a crazy idea, I might give him a heads up on it beforehand so he can think about it and simmer on it before we have the conversation, right? Or give him more time, right? And
3 months later, we'll decide to go on the
that's
like, you're right,
right.
right, right. Yeah.
Exactly, or I might run something by him that is crazy, knowing that he might say no, and that's gonna be frustrating, but maybe I should think about why he's saying no and,
Mm,
you know, think it through a little bit more before we just run out the door.
Yeah, I mean, I think early on in our relationship, I used to think Rebecca was reckless and wanted to destroy our relationship because she was running so fast. But now I think we have language to put around it. It I see it as an advantage. Like, I lean into the fact that without her 9 quick start, I wouldn't do half the things that we've done
mhm,
because I'd be stuck in analysis paralysis. I'd
Mhm.
be stuck analyzing the details, you know, and I do more now because I lean into her gifts and her talents. And I think I'd hope, putting words in your mouth, that you see me no longer as an anchor and, like, I hold us back. Yes, but we get to, like, flush out some of those ideas, and the having a space and a time in a quarterly meeting or a weekly meeting to really flush out that idea and listen to both sides of it and say, "Hey, I need a little more time to go away and figure this out." Like, that's okay because you have the strategy. Rebecca knows now she suggested this idea. It's not like it's gonna fall off a list.
Mhm.
Like, there's a time and a place, and it's captured. Let's talk about it. I just need more space and time
mhm.
to get to that point.
Yeah.
I'd ask you as well, Cam, like you said, you're a high you're a low fact finder and a high quick start.
A quick
Like,
start, yep.
what is your wife? Like, have you ever done that
So,
before?
she hasn't done the Kolbe. I need to have her do the Kolbe, but she on, like, Strengths Finders, harmony, like, that
Yeah.
is very much so I would imagine, she's gonna lend herself probably a little bit more almost similar to what you guys as far as a split, goes just based on tendencies. We're very similar in Myers-Briggs, which makes it fun. But the strengths finder, she just hasn't done Colby yet. I've been meaning to like I have a friend that's a Colby. I need to have him send her the assessment, have her do it. But because it is, I think that multitude of perspectives
Yeah.
of different assessments. Because I mean, even Colby's like, I mean, they're I think the only conative test,
Yes.
but you want to have other versions of that too. Like the Myers Briggs is very helpful, or
Yeah.
version of Myers Briggs, and the strengths finders, those are unique ways. So I need to have her do that. So I will report back? Because I'm actually curious now.
It's been interesting because on a lot of the other assessments, we're very similar, like, we're both high Ds on the disc,
Yeah.
but on Colby, we were polar opposites, so it was just
Mm.
so fascinating to see how we're wired and, how that can
It probably
be
makes sense. Like, oh, yeah.
yeah, and it can become a superpower if you want it to be, right? Instead of it
Right.
becoming that friction.
You know,
Yeah,
and
that probably does make a lot of sense. Like what you said, it almost gives you that perspective that, oh, Rebecca isn't necessarily reckless. It's just she's got these ideas that are going to push towards action.
yeah.
And once you have that perspective, it's a lot different than, oh, well, why are they just moving? They're impulsive. That's blah, 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 blah.
Mhm.
Like it can be
And if I want a plan, I can just ask for the plan. I don't have to create the plan.
right. And that's like yeah, that's perfect.
So, yeah.
That's so
Well,
cool.
awesome.
So if there's somebody that, is and maybe a coach or even another a visionary or founder, somebody in the business world is thinking, "Man, I'm resonating with this. I see this." Like what's a normal process for you all as far as kind of how do people get in? I mean, is it start with the book? Are there resources? I mean, what does kind of a normal engagement look like?
Yeah, well, of course, you can read the book. We would love that. We do have free resources on our website, so you can download our Thrive Vision and Plan, our weekly sync, the bucket list tool. So there's some tools on our website if you wanted to start there. And then we really have two. Well, we have a couple ways you can engage with us. So we have a virtual program, entirely virtual. It's a 6-month program. And so, in that 6 months, we help you not only implement the system, but level it up, learn new things. We bring in speakers, and we have different topical, things that we talk about. We do have a retreat. Really, it's a workshop, I would say, more than a retreat. And so, we've got a couple of different coaches that do that. So, we have one in Raleigh. I think you
Oh,
were in
cool.
South Carolina, right?
I
So, not
am.
not too
Yeah.
far, not too far from you. And then we also do private coaching for those that want to kind of go further, faster, and deeper. So lots of different ways to engage with us, from the self implementing all the way through, having a guide.
Yeah. Oh, that's so good.
And I
Um,
and I think I wanted to say as well, I think that everyone thinks that this is gonna be a really heavy process,
hmm.
and it's not. It's like a really fun experiment. Like, like, you both come together, we ask some really deep questions. There is work involved, and but it's a really fun process to go through. Like, you're discovering, like, where are you going? Why are you together as a couple? What are you wanting to achieve out of life? Like, that dreaming part is just inspirational as a couple.
Hmm.
Like, I love that part of it, and I love seeing the couples come together and just form around, "This is where we're going. This is where
Hmm.
what we're driving to," and there's so much power in that, so much.
You have your North Star that you can go towards.
That's it.
That's
Yeah.
huge. I mean, that's absolutely huge. Just yeah, that's a takeaway for me is just how important that is. And we make it so important in business, yet we very rarely take it to the personal side. So
And it's
that's
so fun, like, to celebrate.
yeah,
Hey, I
that
just got
is
to do my bucket list trip, or oh my gosh, I just accomplished my 3 years in 2 years or 18 months or whatever. Like, it's so fun to hear
yes.
those wins, and it just fuels you wanting to show up and be even better.
Oh, this has been so much fun. I thank you guys for coming on and kind of sharing like a sneak peek behind kind of like the vision and how we like work through all that. That's been so much fun. I always like to ask guests at the tail end of things if you could go back and you guys can take this together as a couple, or if you want to answer individually, however you want to take this, doesn't matter to me, because I'm interested in whatever you guys say. But what is if you could go back to rookie James and Rebecca with all the knowledge and experience that you have now, what advice would you give yourselves and why?
I I think for me, it would be starting with a vision, like starting with that North Star on where you're really heading. Because I think when we started out together, it's like you're fueled on chemistry and connection, and you know, you both got dreams and visions about where you're going, and that can either pull you apart or it can pull you together. And I think if we'd really done this from day one and had the plan on where we were going, and the plan changes, like, as you go through different seasons, like, nobody knows what kids Like, when until you have kids, you don't understand what having kids does to your life. But
Very
you
accurate.
become always put yourselves at the bottom of the list. Like, with the
Mhm,
kids, it's like they take over your life, and you've gotta prioritize your relationship, and I don't think we ever did. And I think,
mhm,
you know, we always had dreams and aspirations, but we never really prioritized us and the direction that we were going, and that is so important because if your cup is full, you have so much more to give to your spouse, to your kids, to work, to, I I think to me, doing this earlier on in our relationship would have been,
mm,
phenomenal.
One of the values for EOS is humbly confident.
mm,
And I think about that a lot in my journey because I was very good at the humble part and I wasn't always good at the confident part.
mm,
And so I think the advice that I would give my rookie coach self is trust yourself more. Like, we have this intuition that I've learned to lean into as I've gotten more experienced, but most of the time, I knew the answer, and I was still asking or looking for someone else to validate or something, and so I think it's trusting myself more, um, and leaning into that confident part of that value.
I love both of those. Those are great. There's no right or wrong answer to those. It's just, it's whatever perspective. So I appreciate you guys sharing that. Those are meaningful. And then the
Um,
second thing that I always like to ask, and again, however you guys want to take this together, separate, what is a lesson you're in the middle of learning in this current moment?
I hate marketing. I I hate I think for me, I know the system works. Like, we've seen
Mhm.
the results. We've had hundreds of couples go through this program, and it's transformational. It's awesome to see them come out the other side, and you hear those testimonials. But for me, trying to understand what we're selling, you know, it's like it's so many things to so many different people.
Mhm.
It's like newlyweds, empty nesters, you've got kids and you're in the middle of all the chaos. Like, trying to figure out this marketing message, like, nobody wants to buy a relationship operating system. It sounds absolutely unromantic, and it's like so I guess just understanding that message that's resonating with
Mhm.
people, and that's been the hardest part of our journey right now, I think, is, like, are we selling the drill or are we selling the hole? Like, what are
Mm.
we selling?
Well, just to encourage you, just from talking to you and the story that you can share, that sells itself. You
Mm.
can slave away on marketing messages. That's what I do for a living. But like, if you go in and lean into the story and you have experience, that's ultimately what sells. So, and you live that out every single day, in the multiple conversations that we've had. So I've caught in that from you. So you're marketing just by sharing your story, man. You got it. But Rebecca, do you have anything to add on that or a lesson you're in the middle of learning?
I think it's the same one,
Hmm,
just how do we speak about this so that it translates,
yeah.
and so that I think it's the same lesson. So,
That
Yeah,
thanks for the storytelling advice. I like
I'm a
that.
big if guests have listened to this, I'm a big Story Brand fan with Don Miller,
Yep.
and, just I think when you can share that and that's what you guys are already doing, and obviously I mean, you gotta figure out, like, your tag and all that kind of stuff, like, those things are important, but I think there is, especially in more of an experiential type thing, I think you all telling the stories, I think that is, and figuring out that aspect and the why behind it is important, but, those are good lessons to learn there. They're the fun that's the fun stuff. You guys have a thing that works. You guys are living testaments of that, and so it's how can we get this to the masses and influence lots of people, right?
yeah.
That's the goal.
It
So
makes a difference. I mean, like, I don't want anybody to have to experience the
mhm.
pain that I had, you know? You shouldn't have to choose whether or not you're gonna turn in or turn away. I think to me that's, there's a short, quick answer there. You can hit the easy button and join the program.
On that note, let's say somebody does want to get in touch with you all. What is the best place to get in touch, learn more, all of the above?
Well,
Yeah.
I'd say just shoot me an email, james@thethrivingcouple.com. I'd love to hear from you. I love having great conversations with great people. That's my, I love that. But there's also the website as well, book a call. But thethrivingcouple.com.
And we'll put links to all that in. We'll throw James's email up there. Hopefully, a bunch of spam doesn't come your way because of that. But it is. I feel like they'll find you no matter what. So,
That's right.
but we'll link out to all those things and some other resources and some of the things that you guys mentioned. But I appreciate you guys coming on and having a conversation. This has been fun. I've learned a lot. I've been challenged in lots of ways, and I appreciate you both. I know we don't know each other very well, but I can just sense the passion that comes out for you all, and I appreciate you all being vulnerable and sharing your story to help impact others that are in similar boats. Because I think it's a lot more common than people probably even would care to admit
Yeah.
or maybe we even realize as a society. So what you guys are doing is very special, very real, and so thank you for being who you are. I
Well,
appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having us, Cam.
thank you. I think so many people are probably on here listening that, you know, expected like a uh, business
Podcast.
business
Hey,
podcast, and it's like we should put our personal life first. It's like
right.
I had a great conversation with an entrepreneur the other day. He's like, "I wanna do my personal annual before I do the business one because I want the personal to drive the business, not the other way around. I don't wanna be a slave to the business anymore." You know?
Yeah.
So, I hope everyone takes something away from it and, goes away and plans that at least get your annual goals out and your rocks done.
Yes. I think, the often the I always call them the less traditional episodes, we'll just say it that way, I feel like it's the kind way to put it. I feel like those are often the most valuable, the most I don't know if, not that it's about watches and whatnot, but I feel like those are the ones that tend to resonate with people because it's almost like a pattern disrupt where it's like, "Oh, that's not normal. Wow, that got me thinking," and so I
What was
think this
Cam
will
thinking?
absolutely be that. So, but
Oh, well,
well,
thank you so
awesome.
much, Cam.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for coming on, and thank you all for tuning in and watching. I know I took a lot away from it, and so we will see you next week on the Ambitious Coach Lab. That's it for today's episode of the Ambitious Coach Lab. My hope is that something here helps you sharpen your craft and keep building a coaching practice you're proud of. Before we wrap, a quick thank you to our sponsor, 90. If you're coaching leadership teams, having your clients run their entire world in 90 truly elevates your work. Vision, rocks, scorecards, issues, it all lives in one centralized place. The clarity keeps your clients aligned between sessions and makes every conversation you have with them more focused and more impactful. I've used 90 with over 500 leadership teams, and I can tell you it makes great companies better and great coaches even more effective. Feel free to use promo code AC20 for 20% off. Again, that's AC20 for 20% off. Thanks for hanging out with me today. I'm Cam, cheering you on as you grow your ambitious coaching practice. We'll see you next time.